Please stand for the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the July 13th, 2023 Planning Board meeting for the town of Carmel. First up on our agenda, we have a subdivision, Stillwater Development, 345 Austin Road. It's on with a sketch plan.
Good evening, everyone.
So, Mike, did you have a memo on this?
I did it today. I just got back from vacation, so.
Okay. You want to go over it with us, please?
Yep, they are trying to divide a lot. It's already a flag lot now into two flag lots. It's on Austin Road in Mahopac. According to the plat, the two lots are sharing a driveway with the neighbor to the north. It comes in on the neighbor's property, crosses onto this property, and then the neighbor pulls back off the property. So just make sure we get a copy of all the easements for Joe to review to make sure they're all correct. Variances are required from the zoning board for lot width. For lot one, you got to correct your numbers on your plat or on the, either your plat's wrong or the list below is wrong. Your numbers are off. I have all the right numbers in there. Lot width for lot one, lot width for lot two, and frontage for lot one and two.
Okay, thanks, Mike. And Rich, you had a memo as well, right?
Yes, I did. So this is on for sketch plan. The application, as Mike mentioned, is proposal to subdivide a 5.84 acre parcel at 345 Austin Road into two lots. One lot will be 2.76 acres, the other 3.07. They meet the minimum requirements based on the square footage. Following preliminary comments, ultimately a signed and sealed and licensed by a survey of the property should be signed and sealed by a licensed surveyor should be provided. It's unclear if the properties have sufficient road frontage. Driveway maintenance agreement between lots 1 and 2 and adjacent property should be provided. The applicant has identified in the application they will pay a recreation fee for the site, and no areas are proposed for open space or recreation. As the subdivision plans are refined, all missing elements mandated by section 131.13 should be incorporated into the project's design plans. Otherwise, we have no objection. There are other standard permits and references that are needed for the project, referrals and whatnot, but that will move forward as we go forward.
Okay, thank you. And Pat, you had a memo as well,
I
right?
did, and Mike and Rich touched on most of the primary issues. The real issue with this is the driveway. So we've got an existing driveway that comes from the neighbor's property onto this property and then back off again. So it's an existing flag lot. They're making it a more flaggy lot. I don't know how you describe that. Ordinarily, our standard is every lot has its own driveway. When you start sharing driveways, it becomes problematic. So it's up to Paul to define why a common driveway is suitable in this particular instance. Even so, we have a common driveway that's on somebody else's property and bounces back and forth. So that's not a great situation. So the obvious initial answer is, can you create driveways on individual lots and not use that driveway? And what's the benefit or adverse condition of doing that? The existing driveway on the adjacent property is the curb cut that would now be used for an additional dwelling. So we have to make sure the site distances are adequate at that driveway on the neighbor's property. And all of this is, we're talking about, as Mike indicated, the neighbor's property. So we do need to have easements to document that, in fact, the neighbor's cooperating with this. I'm not sure, Paul, if it's just a single residence that's off that driveway.
It's just one residence that goes off
So
of the
it'd be useful
driveway.
to show that on the drawing so we have an understanding of how that all operates. So the principal issue really is this driveway condition. It's not optimum. Normally, we'd like to have individual driveways, but it's up to the applicant to pitch his case to you that why this is a suitable condition.
Okay.
Well, do you know under what authority they can go on to the neighbor's property?
There is a filed easement.
Filed easement?
Yeah, there is an easement that's in the deeds.
Is there language in there that you can't overburden the easement?
Not that I know of.
Okay. So you're
That's-
probably gonna have to get further clarification from,
The neighbor.
absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's often the case an easement was put in place for a single residence, not two residences. So that's what we've got to look at, and that's the issue that you should be focusing on.
Paul, you want to take us through the project?
Yes, in current condition, you have the existing driveway that comes off the neighbor's property. There's a very steep embankment along Austin Road, along that strip as you're going up the hill. So our intention is to sit down with the neighbor, discuss making improvements to the driveway as well as cutting back that embankment so that sight distance. I mean, if you go out to do a site walk or drive up there, which you're welcome to do, you'll see that it's difficult with, no matter where you are in that stretch, coming out onto the road. So you would want that embankment pulled back. And in terms of grade, it actually works best for us as well as the neighbor to come off in that location because you're coming off at a higher elevation off of Austin Road and then cutting back across slope on the downward end of the hillside. So grading wise, it works a lot better. For us to come off of our own lot, I'm cutting in, but now I'm going to have a whole series of back and forth movements to finally try to catch up to grade. So we'd like to be able to expand the existing easement, have the driveway improved. We could address things that the town wants in terms of stormwater management now. Right now, you just have drainage coming off that hillside that just goes right out into Austin Road. So we would be able to, introduce infiltration to deal with stormwater runoff, which I think would be a positive. Once you get back to the top of the hill, it's pretty much just straightforward, two big lots.
Would you point on the map where you want to adjust the easement if possible, or if the neighbor agrees or grants that? So everything above where you just traced is the neighbor's property?
No.
Just the first edge.
Just the, okay.
No, what you have, and this part I'm not sure about yet, is the surveyor showed just a single line and references that there's I think it's a 10-foot or 20-foot easement. And you probably really want to have an easement that shows the perimeter, the outside boundaries, as opposed to the center line, because when you look at the center line, the driveway veers off it. So, I mean, there honestly could be locations right now where the driveway is in the easement or only part of it's in the easement. So all those little things can get cleaned up.
Yeah, Paul, unless it's an ancient easement, most easements are defined by a boundary, a meets and bounds description, so
Well, that's the thing that I got from the surveyor. It's just giving me a center line,
that's weird.
which is weird. Yes, it is. It's not conventional. It's not something I've seen before. So we'll get that straightened out.
Okay.
But I think, in terms of fire access, which I think, will come up in the future, you probably want to have turn off so that a car coming down the hill can see a car coming up the hill, and, that kind of stuff.
Line of sight coming out.
So you want that line of sight. So you want to be able to expand that easement so you can provide for those kind of activities.
I'll go to the board. Anybody have any questions or comments on this?
So what happens in the case where the neighbor does not want to agree to it? Just says, I don't want to be else on my property, insurance issues and all that. What's the alternative if there is one?
I'm not an attorney, so I can't answer that.
Yeah, Vicki, if they have an easement agreement, they're obligated. The issue is they just don't pay this plow guy. That's what often happens between two neighbors. They don't like one another after a while, and they don't choose to do the common maintenance that's required for a common driveway.
And insurance becomes an issue if somebody has an accident on my side and it's, that would be my issue.
Well, I think ultimately you would want an agreement
Yeah.
that all three are signed into. The other thing is, I mean, for the adjacent property owner, in terms of maintenance, maintenance then becomes 1/3 as opposed to 1/2.
And
So
then
that
it's-
in itself
yeah.
might be incentive to want to allow an additional car or two to come up the driveway.
In light of what he was saying earlier about the uniqueness of this easement, is it something that we should have Joe take a look at? Okay.
It should be it should be a common driveway and maintenance agreement with all three. Obviously, the owner can bind two of them presently. But that neighbor is the linchpin to this, because if the neighbor says no, you've got to find an alternative means of accessing.
Yeah, then I got to make a driveway work.
Yeah.
And just review again, if you could, what that would mean as an alternative solution.
It means I would come in at this location.
But the neighbor has to watch too, because if he does that, then he may not allow him on his property. It goes both ways.
I would be starting down at this location. I went to this map because it shows a little bit of topography. But I'm probably 20, 25 feet lower than this elevation here. So I'm starting here, now I'm cutting across, and I'm coming back. And you just end up with a lot of swishing back and forth. And now all of a sudden, you know, if you want to provide stormwater, what you're going to want to do, because you're introducing an impervious surface, you lose that area where you want to put it in.
Is there any reason that the neighbor needs to access the current easement road?
He would have the same problem.
While it's on your client's property? In other words, I'm not,
His house is up here.
yeah,
For him to get here, all of a sudden now he's got to start doing that.
okay. So he's got an
He's
incentive.
same issue,
He's got an incentive.
which is why the common driveway probably was arrived at in the first place back whenever it was done.
Got it.
Anybody else have any other questions or comments? Well, you'll get the comments, you'll get them that from the consultants, you got some work to do on this. Get back to us with some correspondence, I guess, from the landowner.
Yeah,
on the easement.
we'll get something from the landowner to say that he's on board and, you know, and move that process forward.
And then you pick up on the comments.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Well, just before you have them sign off on any easement, just get it over to me first so I can take a look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd rather you see it first. We don't even, there's not, until we actually have a final design, there's nothing really to,
Understood.
All right, thank you. Variance on that.
Tough grab.
Thank you, Paul.
Couple of zoning code violations.
Okay, next up on the agenda is Fabian Panny, 112 Stillwater Road, regrading application.
Sorry, I only have one board.
How are you, John?
It's got colors.
You have a number, Mike?
I don't have a memo, but I did go out to the site with Jack and I think the DEP representative, maybe Rich also. There are two spots that have to be cleaned up, I believe it is. Other than that, I didn't see any big amount of fill that was put in there. I don't have any objection to this.
Okay, thank you. And Rich, you want to go through your memo?
Yeah, so this is regrading and leveling of a backyard at 112 Stillwater Road. There was soils delivered to the site, and the applicant provided soil testing results. They exceeded some of the New York State DEC thresholds. Those soils would have to be removed and disposed of per New York State DEC regulations. The overall disturbance as submitted is about 13,000 square feet. which is above the threshold criteria for disturbance in New York State DEC, a development of a stormwater pollution prevention plan with just erosion sediment controls as needed. Legend should be provided on the drawing. Construction sequence and additional details should be provided on how the proposed work will take place. All fill must be certified per state DEC regulations, manifest provided. An assessment of runoff from the site so as not to cause erosion to the adjacent property needs to be provided, and the location of the portion proposed to be disturbed and its relation to natural water courses should be given, existing and final contours should be provided, and the details of all erosion controls to be implemented. Straight out of the code.
Pat, you have
So, the work itself is no big issue, really just a couple of verifications that are necessary. So, we have some soil sampling results, but where to come from? So it's just a list of things. So, was it done by a lab? Where did that information come from? So verify that. There is a DEC wetland adjacent to the property. It appears as though some of this work occurs within their buffer setback. Jack's indicated that they've spoken to DEC and it does not require a permit. Just have DEC verify that.
I think
So
the
it's
DEC did flag it, right, the wetland edge?
Microphone.
Right.
Ted Kozlowski flagged it, and DEC woman verified that, yes. And
It's surprising that they would not require a permit for any activity within the, so if that's the case,
I
that's fine.
think I have an email someplace about that.
So just give us something from DEC. And the removal procedures, if it's being done under DEC's supervision, anything unusual that we should be aware of.
Okay. This is the flagged DEC wetlands, and this is the line for the 100-foot setback. This area here was the area that was, one of the areas that was filled, and this is the second area that was filled. Both of these areas were tested, and this area complied with DEC's unrestricted use criteria. This one did not, so this material is getting removed, and that's only, the original disturbance was 4,200 square feet here and 200 square feet there. And that's all been revegetated. This purple line is the area that he wants to just level slightly for a play area for his kids to play soccer and not break an ankle. And the only thing he's going to do there is scrape it up, topsoil, seed it, and mulch it to grow some good grass. And that's the story. I mean, the area is pretty flat. And the only real problem is the area where he had some soil which did not meet the unrestricted use criteria, and it's only maybe 10 or 20 yards of material. I don't even know why he put that there.
Well, I got a couple of questions.
Okay.
We've talked about this before, and we talked about in advance, I believe this application is in front of us, unless I'm confused, about making sure we're bringing in clean fill. Okay, here we are tonight, and non-clean fill was brought in. When is that remediation and removal gonna start?
As soon as the town gives us the okay, right, Rich?
I'm sorry, I was,
The
What was
question
the
was,
question?
When will they start, when can they start the removal of the contaminated soil?
yep, I mean, once they get approval from the DEC on how to move forward with it, it's really a DEC thing. So, and Mr. Chairman, just so you know, the application came in, it was already under an NOV, so this wasn't part of the application that they're coming in to get approval for the fact that they brought in this fill. They brought in the fill, had an NOV issued, then did the soil testing. Now they're here to show, okay, we're gonna do the remediation and then level off the rest of his yard in the back, right? I think that's essentially what's going on. So he knows that it needs to be clean because
The DEC will notify our office as well when they're gonna,
I can have to work with DEC when it has
well,
to come out.
he doesn't intend to bring in any more fill.
But you gotta remove the old fill.
Yes, I know.
And DEC has to be a part of that, no?
I'll have to check with Sarah.
That's the question that's being asked.
Yeah, I'll check with Sarah. But the reason I didn't submit a SWIP yet was because the original area of disturbance was less than 5,000 square feet. And I mean, if somebody's just gonna take a York rake in their backyard and level it a little bit and seed it and mulch it to grow grass, better grass, I mean, there was always grass there, but it was kind of crap. I mean, but if you want me to submit a SWIP, I'll submit a SWIP.
If you regrade 5,000 square feet, you're required to do a SWIP.
You know, but it was really, I'll submit a SWIP, but it's really not, it wasn't really regrading. The only area that was filled was this area here, and.
It was regraded.
I'll submit a SWIP.
And your application is for a regrading with 13,000 square foot of disturbance. So, yeah, you need a SWIP. All it is an erosion sediment control plan.
I got it,
right?
okay.
Which you're gonna put all that in, it's not that you have to put a detention pond in, so.
The disturbance exceeded the limits by the DEC,
Yeah,
right?
yes.
Yeah, the 5,000 square feet. Yeah, well, yeah, that's fine.
So Jack,
So
I'm a little confused, because Rich was saying that they identified 2 areas that had to be remediated, and
No,
you were
just
pointing to the
one.
one number.
This is the area that needs
That's
to be
number 3, right?
remediated. He dumped some,
What's the other area that's got to be remediated?
no, this is the other area that he put some fill in, which we tested with York Labs and the whole kit and
Right.
caboodle, and this was fine. This area was fine. I think there were 3 samples here and 1 sample there.
Yeah.
So, this does not need to be remediated. I think, as far as I'm concerned, moving forward, we just got to submit a SWIP to legalize what he did before and get that fill out of there. I mean, and if you guys say that it's okay to remove that material now in accordance with DEC, we'll have him to do it next week.
What's that second round or red?
This one,
The second, nope, down? That?
this
Yep.
line,
Yes,
that's the 100-foot setback from the wetlands flagging.
understood. I thought that was another area that you were.
Oh, no. It was this area here and that.
That's what I was referring to earlier. The remediation, that small red circle, is within the wetland buffer. So I'm surprised, it's all up to DEC, it's not our issue. But if the removal of that doesn't require a wetland permit from DEC that are supervising the removal, we're fine with that. It's just surprising. We know that if you do anything within their buffers, they usually require a
Yeah,
permit.
it's pretty close to the wetland flag.
Yeah,
Wetland flag 1. I mean, it's not that far.
but maybe because it's removal and they're looking at it differently, I don't know.
That's right, yeah.
And again, not our issue. It's going to be subject to DEC.
Yes. That's all I have.
Just one more question. The stuff after the stuff is removed, did I hear you say you are not replacing it with other fill?
Probably not. There's no reason to, there's a wall there on the other side of the wall. There's no reason for him to do that. I don't even know why he placed it
Is it just going to
there.
be a hole, or?
No, it's not going to be a hole. It's above, they just dumped some fill above ground, like you guys saw it. And, you know, if there is some small amount of fill that has to level it off, it's going to be clean fill from a certified location.
That's in the bigger square. that
No, we're talking the
No,
small.
it's a little square.
That's past his property line, right?
Yes, it's yeah, kind of, yes, it is.
So is it the DEC who will decide whether or not additional replacement fill has to be added?
Yes, we'll also have to we also contacted DEP because I think that's their property.
And who
Yes,
will
it's the city of
govern the
York property.
process of making sure that if it's required to be replaced,
Excuse me?
who will govern the process as to if it's required to be replaced, that the replacement fill is of sufficient quality?
It'll be in conjunction
Who-
with DEP and
D-
DEC,
Okay.
not any one person.
Not,
It's gonna
not,
be
not the town?
excuse me? Oh, the town, of course, that's why
Okay.
we're here.
Just
I
want
mean,
to be sure.
So am I understanding you correctly, the sample point number 3, that fill, that's actually on New York City property?
Yes. Yeah, yeah, who was it? came out.
No, no, it's in the wall.
I
He
forget.
has since retired, but I forget the gentleman's
Oh,
name.
yeah. No, I have it in my file, but, yeah.
I mean, I would think they would want to move quickly on remediating that. I mean, that all slopes down to the wetland, where that soil is.
Well, at this point now, we have to contact the DEP and the DEC about this fill. And we're here just to get a permit from this board and possibly the Wetlands Board to legalize the previous work, and then the rest of the lawn area, the purple, the big area, that's the 13,000 square feet. That's why we're here in front of you guys. So what's the next step?
Next step would be public hearing. Yes. Before we do that, I just want to go back to the report, okay? That's part of the package where the samples collected on December 20th. All 5 sample points are registered. And am I reading this correctly, that all 5 points exceed acceptable limits?
Three did.
Yep, and the big exceedances are the ones on that red, the small red circle.
Actually,
Right.
number 5 point 5 has no exceedances.
Correct. One didn't have an exceedance. Oh, no, it did, sorry, I read it the wrong
Yeah.
way.
Exceedance.
Yes.
So, the DEC regulates contamination with respect to use of the property. So unrestricted is anything in the earth that's funky, it's unrestricted. But if it's for residential use, if it's for commercial use, if it's for those exceedances vary. So again, that's why knowing where these numbers came from, we have to determine for unrestricted use, is this an exceedance? Just because the number is higher doesn't mean it. It depends on how it's being used. The thing that's questionable is, which is something we're just talking about tonight, is it's being used by the DEP for watershed protection purposes, so that may change things. So I think the DEP was out at the site, so I'm sure they're aware of this issue.
Something's not.
Yeah, we were out with either DEP or DEC, I don't remember which one, DEP. So we were out there with them.
Yeah, so you'd assume they would care more about these exceedances than anybody else. If there's contaminated material in land that they are protecting for watershed protection, presumably they have a problem with that.
I mean, for the record, I want the board to know that we are seeing 4 sample points that exceed limits.
Yeah.
And the applicant, if he's gonna be having his children play back there, I mean, that's his decision, but I just think we have a responsibility to bring this to light, and I think personally, a remediation should be done on the whole thing.
You're correct, but Pat brought up the point of whether there's all different varying, the state has just come out with most recent degrees of what needs, or whether, how it's gonna be used, restrictive use, non-restrictive use. So I think it's up to the applicant, I think it's up to Jack to look at that, and look at those regulations and say, here it is, and then get buy-in from either the DEP or DEC with that assessment, right? So again, they may be suitable for the use that it is. I don't have the chart in front of me, but there is a chart
Okay,
that's out there.
understood. I think I'd like to know that answer, though.
That's what I said earlier.
Before we schedule a public
So
hearing.
we have to hear from DEC.
Yeah,
and what they
I'm not
want
gonna bring the
Jack to
public
do.
in yet.
But is this a DEC issue in terms of the
Does the
larger,
board agree with that?
no, that's my point. So-
Backyard is all you.
So, let me just summarize what I think I'm hearing. We have numbers which could indicate on that backyard area that there's, that they exceed the permissible levels.
Right.
What we don't have an answer to, you say there's a chart or whatever, which tailors the analysis or the conclusions to the use.
For a residential backyard.
Okay,
Correct.
so what we need to hear is the result of that.
Yep.
And if the result is okay, that's fine, and if the result is not okay, then we're gonna need the fill replaced.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, let me ask, I mean, maybe this is a question for Rich.
Samples.
So, he has several sample points in an area which, if I understood you, you're gonna use more or less a rake to kind of flatten out the grade. So, now we have these areas that are showing, some have pretty high lead, one of them is mercury. So now if we take a rake and we start to spread the dirt out, are we making a bad situation worse?
He's not taking that dirt that's contaminated and spreading it anywhere. He's removing that dirt.
No,
No,
we're
no,
talking
yeah,
about
about the
the backyard.
In the back
No,
right.
the backyard, the
No, the back
sample
Sample
point
points,
one,
that's what-
four,
But we don't know
4 and 5.
whether
Well, Rich,
Right, again, that goes back to that chart that we were talking
Again, we have
about.
to wait to
We
hear
have
from
to
the DEC.
determine,
I think that's, it's
it goes
DEC
back
or
to
the
understanding how it relates to what the
DEC 's
state
the
has
regulator.
regulated.
Okay.
Right?
Okay,
So
so
there's a whole,
we have to wait for that to respond.
there's a whole chart that's out there, and they just came out with it in the past year about if they got the soil from a certain place, then you can use it anywhere. If it has, what are you using it for? And then if there's this, that, and the other thing in it, then it's okay. At what level? It's
And
there.
candidly, some of that material may be suitable if there's grass planted on top of it, for example, so
So we'll wait to
we
hear.
just don't know.
I've been involved in several of these fill projects. Some of them much more substantial than this. DEC does not give comfort letters, what they call it. Because in another project, we asked DEC, look, here's the results. Tell us tell the town board what they should do. They won't do it. Unless it's a remediation thing where it's a super bad thing, but those metals, cadmium or lead and mercury, we did research into soils in general, and those metals are in soils naturally. And in one instance, actually two instances, the planning board and the other consultants made a decision that you put 6 inches of topsoil on top of it and grow grass to keep it under the ground and not on the surface of the ground, and that takes care of it. But I will, you're not going to be scheduling a public hearing, I don't think. I will reach out to the DEP and the DEC and see if I can get something out of them as to what are they going to do. I mean, this has been going on for a couple of years. I mean, well, it happened a couple of years ago, right? And
But I'm
people-
confused. Why isn't it as simple as you've got the report with the results, there's something in writing that the state puts out which defines whether what you have in the report, coupled with the use that it's going to be put to and how it's going to be used, whether it's acceptable or not.
That's exactly what Jack can produce.
And that's what we need to see. And then if the answer to that is you've exceeded the permissible levels based on all of that, then isn't the result simply you have to remove the fill and replace it?
That could be.
The answer is then
board.
DEC may have a role in remediating the contamination.
Okay, got
So,
it.
But yeah, that's exactly
Not
it.
just a piece on their property.
So
So a
two
DEC
bridges to cross.
representative isn't going to come here and say, I think Jack's got a
Two
problem.
bridges to cross then. First,
Correct.
let's see if there's a problem.
Yep.
And if there is a problem, how it
And
gets
Jack will
remediated.
tell you whether there's a problem or not, based on the DEC guidance for this in that table that Rich was describing earlier.
I get something from those organizations, and then we'll schedule a public hearing, or you'll schedule a public hearing. Okay.
Anybody else? Anything else? No. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Sorry about the only one board.
Got to remediate those.
Okay, I believe we have minutes from our April 13th, May 11th, May 24th, and June 6th meetings.
I reviewed all sets of minutes. 3 of them had comments, which Rose is going to address. 1 of them I had no comments on. So I would propose approving all the minutes subject to the comments made.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I'll need a motion to adjourn.
I second.
I'll make a
All in
motion.
favor? Aye. All right, meeting adjourned.